They take the information, manipulate it, and give you what they want.
The US just dropped a bombshell. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is hoarding Burkina Faso's gold, not for the people, but to protect his regime. That's the claim made by AFRICOM before the US Senate. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't quiet, and it wasn't random. But here's the real question. Why would a superpower with $1 trillion budgets care so much about one African nation's gold vaults? What are their true intentions? Let's find out.
I can imagine a situation, though, in which the ruling elite of a country is receiving gratuities on the side that inure to the benefit of the strongman leader and not to the populace of the country. Does that sort of corruption and bribery go on with regard to...
It started with a microphone, a polished suit, and a name that many outside the Pentagon wouldn't recognize. General Michael Langley, commander of U.S. Africa Command. But what he said wasn't background noise. It was a targeted blow, broadcast from Washington to the heart of West Africa. Sitting before the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee, Langley made a claim that would ignite a geopolitical storm. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is misusing Burkina Faso's gold reserves to shield his regime. It wasn't an offhand remark. It was precise, strategic, designed to do what such public declarations always do: plant a seed of doubt, of suspicion, of legitimacy. Langley didn't present evidence. He didn't name sources. But in the world of geopolitics, the accusation alone is often more powerful than the proof. And this one hit its mark. Suddenly, the international media picked it up. Think tanks began to analyze it. Western diplomats whispered concerns about mismanagement, lack of transparency, and the possibility of gold being traded not just for weapons, but for something far worse: political immunity. Headlines were framed around fear, not facts. And the timing was no coincidence. Burkina Faso had just made a bold move. It halted raw gold exports. The government announced it would refine and process the gold domestically, and even hinted at backing a future currency with physical gold, a direct challenge to the global fiat system. No Western country applauded the move. Instead, silence. Then, Langley spoke. But why AFRICOM? Why would a military general be the one delivering this message, not a treasury official or diplomat? Because this wasn't just about finances. It was about power, defense, and obedience. AFRICOM's role has long extended beyond defense coordination. It's a quiet enforcer of American strategic interests in Africa. If a leader in the Sahel begins aligning with non-Western powers, questions are asked. If he kicks out foreign troops, alarms go off. And if he starts protecting his country's gold, red alert. Langley's words were a shot across the bow. The implication was clear. Traoré wasn't just managing resources. He was building a fortress, possibly with help from Russia or China, and gold was his ammunition. But what if this wasn't a sign of corruption but of independence? What if this accusation is confirmation that Burkina Faso is slipping out of Washington's grip? Before we decide, we need to hear the other side, because Traoré did not stay silent. Let's see how Burkina Faso responded, and why their answer has terrified Washington even more. Captain Ibrahim Traoré didn't need a press conference to defend himself. There was no desperate statement, no media frenzy. Instead, the Burkinabe government responded with something far more devastating to Washington: calm confidence. Within hours of AFRICOM's accusation going public, Burkina Faso released a concise but firm official rebuttal. There was no apologetic tone, no scrambling to clarify. Only a declaration that every ounce of gold extracted in the country is accounted for through state structures, audited and managed under Burkina Faso's sovereign national budget. Their message? We don't answer to you. And that, more than anything, was the real blow. This wasn't just a government dodging criticism, it was a country that had spent the last year reshaping its very identity. Under Traoré, Burkina Faso has gone from a militarized puppet of foreign powers to a self-directed state rewriting the rules of governance, economics, and foreign policy. The gold issue? Just one part of a much larger revolution. Behind the scenes, the mining sector has undergone a purge. Contracts once signed in French boardrooms are being re-examined. Profits that quietly vanished into offshore accounts are now under state scrutiny. Local cooperatives are being prioritized. And for the first time in decades, Burkina Faso citizens are being told and shown that their country's wealth is theirs. Even more radical, Traoré has refused IMF assistance, choosing instead to keep foreign financial institutions at bay. In their place, he's pushing for economic strategies grounded in self-reliance, including using Burkina Faso's gold to finance national development directly, without intermediaries. No loans, no foreign strings. This isn't just financial independence, it's ideological warfare. What makes Traoré's rebuttal so threatening to the West is that it doesn't sound like a defense. It sounds like a doctrine, a blueprint. One that other African nations might look at and say, if they can do it, why can't we? Washington understood that, and so did Paris. That's why the gold accusation wasn't just about gold. It was a strategic attempt to tarnish a growing symbol of African resistance before he became untouchable. But Traoré isn't just weathering the storm. He's growing stronger in it. His refusal to back down has only emboldened his supporters. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Across Burkina Faso, posters bearing his face next to the slogan, Pour le peuple, par le peuple, for the people, by the people, are becoming more common than political ads. In markets, on walls, in the dust of the streets, a message is forming, he's one of us, and they're afraid of him. But what exactly are they afraid of? To understand why the US reacted the way it did, why a gold policy in Ouagadougou could spark concern in Washington, you have to go back. Not 5 years, not 10, centuries. Because Africa's wealth was never the problem, it was the threat. From the moment gold dust first brushed against the palms of European merchants, Africa's natural resources became the foundation of someone else's empire. From Ghana's golden age to the mines of South Africa, colonial regimes didn't just they structured entire political systems around extraction. Railroads weren't built for Africans, they were built for minerals. Cities rose where ports were needed. And borders were drawn not for nations, but for control. Burkina Faso, once known as Upper Volta under French rule, was never supposed to manage its gold. That was France's role. Even after independence, Paris ensured its former colonies remained tied to it economically through the CFA franc, a currency system backed by African reserves stored in French banks. Gold, even when buried beneath African soil, was owned elsewhere. Fast forward to today, and that same structure remains, just hidden under the mask of global trade and multinational investment. Western mining giants dominate African extraction. Local communities get the pollution and pit jobs. European shareholders get the profits. The real theft never stopped. It just changed clothes. And so when Traoré says, "We will refine our gold ourselves," or "We will back our currency with our resources," the old powers hear something far more dangerous than nationalism. They hear rebellion. If Burkina Faso can stop exporting raw gold, refine it at home, and use it to fund local development, then so can Mali, so can Niger, so can the entire Sahel. That's not just inconvenient, that's systemic collapse for a global model that relies on African raw materials flowing outward with minimal resistance. It's not a coincidence that no Western capital celebrated Burkina Faso's announcement. Not one financial analyst from London or Washington praised the move as visionary or empowering. Instead, they said it was risky, dangerous, economically reckless. But for whom? This is where AFRICOM's voice enters the scene, not as a financial watchdog, but as a geopolitical enforcer. Because when money starts staying in Africa, influence starts leaving it. The fear isn't about whether Traoré is mismanaging gold. It's about whether he's finally managing it too well, for his people, not for foreign shareholders. And when that fear kicks in, the empire doesn't debate. It reacts. Travel bans, isolation, smear campaigns, accusations. But how far will it go this time? Empires don't always strike with bullets. Sometimes they use silence, labels, and closed doors. And after Traoré made his gold untouchable, the West didn't send drones or diplomats. They sent warnings. The U.S. State Department quietly issued a Level 4 travel advisory for Burkina Faso, the highest classification available: do not travel. The official reason? Insurgency and insecurity. But the timing couldn't have been more convenient. It came shortly after Traoré halted gold exports and nationalized processing. And while Burkina Faso has long dealt with insurgencies, the security situation hadn't dramatically changed. Only its policies had. On the surface, a travel advisory sounds benign. But in global politics, it's anything but. It signals to banks, insurers, investors, and foreign governments that the country in question is no longer safe. Not just for tourists, but for business, for partnership, for legitimacy. It's a red flag, waving quietly in the financial wind, telling the world to look away. But that wasn't the only message. Behind the scenes, rumors began circulating on international security forums and analyst briefings. Whispers that the U.S. was considering more aggressive responses to Traoré's defiance. Some reports suggested a possible warrant for arrest. Others floated the idea of targeted sanctions or pressure through regional bodies like ECOWAS. A few even speculated that AFRICOM, which maintains facilities across Africa, could support operations to undermine or replace the leadership in Burkina Faso under the banner of counterinsurgency. None of it is confirmed. But that's the genius of it. You don't need to act. You just need to make the threat believable. Because the goal isn't always to topple a regime. Sometimes it's to paralyze it with uncertainty. If investors hesitate, if allies grow nervous, if the media keeps repeating unproven accusations, then you've done enough. You've frozen progress without firing a shot. And in Traoré's case, the West is betting on isolation. After all, this isn't just about one leader. It's about what happens if he succeeds. If Burkina Faso refines its gold, funds its budget without debt, and survives the backlash. That's not just a win for Traoré, it's a model. A blueprint that other African nations could follow. So the question becomes, how far will the US go to make sure that model never gets off the ground? If travel warnings don't work, will they escalate? If narratives don't stick, will they change the tactic? Because right now, it's not just about stopping Traoré, it's about stopping what he represents. But if history has taught us anything, it's that symbols don't die in silence. They rise, they echo, and sometimes they become unstoppable. So who is Traoré really? A military man clinging to power? Or the return of a legacy the West thought it had buried? In 1987, a bullet silenced Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary president of Burkina Faso, whose vision threatened the very structure of Western control in Africa. But you can't shoot an idea. And now, decades later, that idea is walking again, wearing military fatigues, talking of gold, and refusing to kneel. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is not a reincarnation. He's not pretending to be Sankara. But the parallels are impossible to ignore. A young, fiercely independent leader emerges. He speaks of sovereignty, not subservience. He rejects foreign aid with strings attached. He nationalizes resources and dares to suggest that African wealth should serve African people. And just like Sankara, he's being framed as dangerous. But unlike Sankara, Traoré understands the rules of the new battlefield. He's not fighting with speeches in front of world bodies that will never applaud him. He's not asking for legitimacy from those who've never shared it. He's operating from the ground up, building alliances not in Western capitals, but across borders that share his resistance. Mali, Niger, Guinea. A bloc is forming, and its message is blunt. Africa is tired of being polite. And that's what makes him truly dangerous, not to his people, but to those who benefit from Africa's silence. Western powers had grown used to leaders who smile for cameras while signing away the future. Leaders who export resources in return for foreign aid, debt traps, and symbolic visits to Paris or Washington. Traoré is a break in that pattern. He doesn't want validation. He wants leverage. And perhaps most alarming for the West, he's not alone anymore. China sees in Burkina Faso not a battlefield, but a partner. Unlike the West, Beijing doesn't send lectures about democracy. It sends infrastructure, credit lines, and trade deals. Russia, too, has found in the Sahel an opportunity to expand its influence, offering military support where the West withdrew in frustration. These aren't just alliances. They're lifelines for nations trying to breathe outside the suffocating grasp of the former empire. Traoré's rise isn't just about Burkina Faso, it's about a continental shift. The question on every African leader's mind now isn't how much aid can I get? It's becoming, how much can I keep? That terrifies the old order. Because if Traoré succeeds, if his country survives the smear campaigns, dodges the sanctions, and uses its gold to build something real, then the illusion shatters. The illusion that African nations need to be managed, mentored, or rescued. It proves they were only ever being looted. And if he fails, they'll say they were right all along. But even then, the seed will have been planted, and seeds, especially in African soil, have a habit of growing back stronger. Until now, Traoré's story has felt like resistance, a bold pushback, a refusal. But what if this isn't just about standing against the West? What if it's about building something entirely new? That's the part no one is talking about. What happens if Burkina Faso pulls this off? What if the gold stays home, the economy stabilizes, and a local currency backed by gold becomes reality? What if the country grows not because of Western loans, but because it escaped them? And most importantly, what if the people begin to trust their government, not foreign embassies? That's when this becomes a blueprint, not just for Burkina Faso, but for an entire continent. Mali is already watching. Niger is already following. Guinea is nodding. The conversation is shifting from, can we survive without the West, to why didn't we try sooner? And if these countries begin to cooperate, sharing refineries, pooling reserves, coordinating border defense, then something more dangerous to the old powers is born. A self-reliant Africa. It wouldn't look like the African Union. It wouldn't beg for investment forums in Paris. It would speak its language, one of steel, soil, gold, and pride. But here's the twist. This version of Africa isn't angry. It's just done apologizing, done explaining why it wants to keep its resources, done asking for permission to stand upright, done accepting that sovereignty is something to be granted, not seized. The West won't say it out loud, but it knows what happens next if Traoré's plan works. More exits, more refusals, more countries saying no to military bases, no to aid dependency, and no to foreign companies owning what lies beneath their soil. That's the world they're trying to stop. And maybe, just maybe, it's already too late. For the first time in centuries, the future is being shaped without Western permission. And Africa, long treated as a pawn on someone else's chessboard, is stepping into the center. It's not just Burkina Faso. It's not just Mali or Niger. It's a continental shift, accelerated by choices that seem small at first. Refining gold locally, rejecting foreign military bases, daring to back currencies with tangible resources. But these small moves are like tectonic plates shifting underneath a fragile empire. And the alliances forming aren't about ideology. They're about survival, about dignity, about refusing to play a game where the rules were always rigged. China and Russia aren't swooping in as saviors. They're stepping into a vacuum the West created. A vacuum filled with broken promises, unequal trade, and endless lectures about good governance from governments that have plundered the planet for centuries. In the new world order being born, respect replaces control, and partnership replaces patronage. And here's the real shift. Africa isn't asking for a seat at the table anymore. It's building a new table. Different alliances, different priorities, different dreams. Burkina Faso's fight isn't just for gold. It's for the right to dream beyond survival, to thrive without being told how. And once that dream spreads, it can't be contained by sanctions, accusations, or armed drones. Because you can blockade a country, you can assassinate a leader, but you can't kill an idea whose time has finally come. Do you think the accusations can now work? Will people trust West more than Traoré? Let us know in the comments section. Are you ready for a new Africa? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.